I'm Bronwyn Morgan with Zio Air, and I am at AUVSI Xponential 2021 here in Atlanta. And it's so exciting to bring our podcast, ZioCast, live to AUVSI. We're talking to industry leaders across geospatial, drones, robotics, space, artificial intelligence, AI-based weather systems, and so much more, including advanced aerial mobility, UTM, government. It doesn't stop. So look forward to you joining us and listening to our leaders talk about what's happening with unmanned systems, drones, and more. We have a wonderful guest with us today who happens to be the president and CEO of AUVSI, Wynne. So we're going to take a little peek under the tent of what the plans are for the future, Brian's experience and background. So join us right here. Brian, welcome to ZioCast Live.
Thank you, Bronwyn. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. So, you have a very storied background and a lot of experience in telematics and IoT, electric drive technologies, autonomous air mobility. How did you get into that, and how did that get you here to AUVSI?
Now, did you say storied background or sordid background?
Storied.
It's been a journey, and it's really getting to be more and more exciting. But I'm basically someone who started out as an international economist and got very, very interested in technologies, and then got more specifically interested in transportation technologies. And so I've been pretty fascinated with things that are electrified for a long time. Was in the early stages of what we're calling Electric Car 3.0. I was working for a group called the Electric Drive Transportation Association. And that was one that was a very diverse community, not unlike AUVSI, with a very mission-driven idea, which was to try and use more electrons that were more domestically produced in powering our vehicles. And in that process, I came to realize that the electric motor is way more efficient and better than the combustion engine. Can you spell instantaneous torque? And so it's been a lot of fun doing that. I'm still driving electrically, but I'm also a pilot. So when they approached me about coming over to AUVSI, I was just fascinated by the opportunity here,
right.
And I've been doing this for 6.5 years. And
what a great fit.
It's gone by in a blink.
This is, what an extraordinary journey that you've been on, and I think as we look and peek into the future, it's only going to get more interesting. And so with that, what's the mission, what are the goals and the top priorities for AUVSI over the next, 5 years?
Well, I heard you talking about all things unmanned. That's on our business cards as well. And AUVSI started, next year will be our 50th anniversary. So we started in 72, focused on the air side.
Really?
But the objective of the organization is to promote unmanned vehicles and the systems and the technologies in robotics, all of the enabling technologies in all of those domains. And my particular interest is in making certain that what we learn in one domain, we can utilize in another domain as well. That's what makes AUVSI a very unique organization. And to do that in a way that the technology is executed so that society can see the real benefits of it. There's enormous economic pull for this technology. Obviously, it can be used in many, many different ways. That's really important for sustained adoption of the technology.
Absolutely.
But it also, execution matters. Doing it right matters. When you talk about aircraft flying around in the airspace, vehicles driving around the roads, we don't like collisions. We want to eliminate collisions on the road. We want to maintain the incredible high safety levels we have in the air and in the maritime domain. That's what the organization is all about.
Wow. Yeah. Your air, sea, and land. There's no space or place that will not be touched by these technologies. We were just having that conversation yesterday. It's embedded, just like coding is embedded in everything. This is embedded in everything. Based on that and your viewpoint and your vantage point, are there any examples of where you're seeing companies and startups coming together that you could share who are working together across autonomy and AI and all these systems right now that have come together under the AUVSI umbrella?
Yeah, we see it all the time. I mean, it's extraordinary how many new companies have emerged. When I walk around the show floor here, there is as much, and we have the analytics that demonstrate this, there is as much business to business, booth to booth interaction as there is people coming in from the outside. And that is part of what's really exciting about this particular event. That said, the audience that we're attracting to this event is an audience which is based on, I'm going to say, enterprise users, right? So the show's history it was largely a military use technology, and it was heavily military for many, many years. In fact, AUVSI started basically when people stepped off base at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That was a long time ago. Now what you've got is you've got the utility industry, you've got the construction industry, you've got the oil and gas industry, all these different industries coming, and we try and make sure the platform is available to them to talk about what they're doing and for them to learn from one another. That, of course, attracts new ideas,
right.
And we see some of those people from those user industries starting new companies all the time,
right.
And developing new technologies, and in some instances working across domains. So that's part of the magic of this particular event in the organization.
Yeah, I've seen that too, and it's good to get out and actually interact with some of the companies that we're partnered with or allied with. So yeah, that definitely, that kind of interoperable relationship is a great thing, and seeing it happen here. When I think about the future, everybody is expecting their drone delivery of Amazon packages tomorrow, and it's like it won't be tomorrow, but it's coming. What do you see as the first couple of applications that people should anticipate around autonomous execution in the marketplace?
Well, I think there are lots and lots of places where we can apply this technology beyond visual line of sight, where the safety, on balance, the safety is actually improved. And we're starting to see some of this already. And we've been having this conversation when FAA Administrator Stephen Dixon was here yesterday. We were talking about this backstage. And the FAA really wasn't set up to regulate anything other than safety risk of flight.
Right.
And in reality, what we're seeing is that being able to utilize a drone, for example, to go under a bridge where there's almost no risk to flight is vastly safer than hanging someone out of a harness.
Absolutely.
I say nothing of greater efficiency and the ability to do things much more quickly. So those kinds of applications we're seeing now, and with everything when it comes to safety regulators want to see data, so we have to build data and then get into more and more complex operations. Some of that's already being done, including some delivery, as you know, and that was accelerated during COVID, since COVID kind of started ruling all of our lives for a while here. And that's been very gratifying. But we're still building those data cases that will allow us to be able to do the more complex operations. But again, I'll keep coming back to it as a recovering economist. There's a huge economic pull here. And the key thing that we're seeing is that when you are doing package delivery, the key thing is not necessarily the technology, it's letting people know what's going on in advance.
True.
So that people can not only understand what that drone that just flew over the house is doing, but start to go down to their neighbors and say, hey, how do I sign up? Like, what did you just get delivered to your house? And we're seeing that more and more as well. So public, that's going to be it is a really big factor. I think it will be the key factor as we go forward in public acceptance.
And that's one of the primary, I think, challenges, and it's one that comes up all the time, as I work on the drone side of things. But as we think about robotics and autonomous vehicles rolling around, what do you think are the biggest risks and challenges and hurdles that we're facing and that we need to overcome outside of public acceptance to make this really start to take off? No pun intended.
Well, I think about it from the standpoint of the different regulatory traditions. We don't allow aircraft to just come out of the sky. And we haven't left one up there yet.
Right.
They all come down. We like them to come down under control, whether they be small drones or they be 787s, for example.
Absolutely.
We tolerate as a society much less safety on the roads.
Right.
And the biggest challenge that we're going to have in integrating this technology, autonomous vehicles on the roads, is drivers like me, who consider the speed limit a threshold of opportunity. Automated vehicles are going to follow the rules.
Right.
It would be vastly better if we all followed the rules.
Right.
But integrating into a system where people kind of bend the rules and maybe take some liberties with discretion, and I'll cop to that.
Right.
There's going to be some integration challenges around that. Obviously, we have those integration challenges. I've been a manned pilot for many years, integration doesn't mean we just keep the drones down here under 400 feet. No, it means that we're sharing the airspace, traditional aviation with unmanned aviation, and so that's the tricky part. How do we do that in such a way that not only doesn't degrade safety, it actually improves safety?
Exactly.
And to me, this is a mentality shift for the regulators, because we have different regulators for the ground. We have different regulators in a much longer regulatory tradition for the maritime domain, and we've got a relatively new regulatory tradition for the air side. And how do we get them all to recognize if we embrace this and we integrate it correctly, we can improve safety throughout those domains? That, to me, is a mentality shift that we are really, really working hard on. It kind of begins with public acceptance, because legislators, policymakers, and regulators won't move if the public doesn't want it to.
Exactly.
Because they all work for the public in theory,
right.
and you and I as taxpayers. But once in a while you have to step back and say, hey, we have a mentality shift here that if we can make it, we can even improve on the massively good safety record we've got in the air.
Yes.
And we've got almost nowhere to go up, in my opinion, on the roads in this country and around the world. So we can do ourselves a lot of really good here, but it's going to require a mentality shift.
I completely agree with that. That was a recent discussion around road safety and transportation, and I noticed this past week there were it appeared to be so many more trucks on the road, and I do believe that with autonomy we will improve safety as it's managed. So there'll be a few incidents probably here and there, but it'll be interesting to see. And with that, my last question is, this is going to require a lot of computing power.
Yes.
Robotics, sophisticated artificial intelligence, autonomous systems. I mean, we're concerned about that right now in terms of what we need to reach the vision that we're thinking about for the future. What are your thoughts on edge computing and new chip technology to really power this industry to what its full potential can be? What are you thinking about?
That's a great question, because I spend a lot of my time thinking about enabling technologies, because we are across those domains. And there is no question that, as somebody who has had an entire career of being out ahead of technologies and trying to get them adopted faster, that our ideas and the possibilities that we can see generally are outpacing, but just by a little bit, the speed of, the elegance of software, the speed of our microprocessors, et cetera, et cetera. The ability to put a camera on a drone and take a whole bunch of pictures of something to do an inspection of high voltage lines, for example. You don't want to bring those back and have a human look at those.
Exactly.
Right? So the question is are we bringing all that data back, or are we actually doing the analytics real time?
Exactly.
As you say, the edge computing. And the answer to that has got to be, well, yes. As the microprocessors, the ability to process data, the analytics, the AI get better and better, so much more of this will be pushed out to the actual platforms that are doing things, and they're doing them autonomously.
Exactly.
And that's very exciting. There's just, we now can see through the continuum we've been on, the faster microprocessor speeds, the more elegant software, and exquisite solutions that we have, that these things are going to be possible. We have to be able to do it. We have to integrate into the airspace, onto the roads, and into the sea and under the sea in a way that doesn't disrupt or reduce safety, but actually improves it.
Absolutely.
And the interesting part to me is, for example, how we've seen that in aviation already, with more and more automation. I can't believe, frankly, that if I were a long-haul truck driver, that I wouldn't want an autopilot, much like we have autopilots all the way down to small aircraft like I fly, that are extremely sophisticated. And those are, getting that mentality shift will allow us to improve safety for everyone, basically making their jobs and their lives a lot easier.
Yeah, and we're seeing it in luxury sedans and SUVs, so yeah, that is the evolution. I think computing power, along with 5G and bandwidth and new fuel cells and fuel capabilities and battery charging capabilities will be the future of this industry.
We could do the next one on energy density alone. That's a subject I've been working with for a while.
We'll have you back on to do that. Brian, these have been your 6 questions on ZeoCast Live. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And happy to be here with you at Xponential 2021.
And we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.